Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Great, ready to talk Cleveland sports. We got a lot to get into.
Yeah, and it's been a while since our last episode, so we'll probably be a little bit more infrequent now that the Browns are really not all that relevant in terms of playoffs or playoff hopes. The Guardians, unfortunately, as we know, lost in the ALCS against the Yankees. We'll provide a real brief update on the Browns and Guardians, but we're going to spend most of this episode today talking about the Cavs and their awesome 9-0 start, going for hopefully a 10-0 start tonight. So, yeah, real quick with the Browns, they're 2-7 right now. Since our last episode, it was following the game against the Washington Commanders, but since then, as most of you, if not all, know at this point, they've since lost to the Eagles, the Cincinnati Bengals. They beat the Baltimore Ravens in Jameis Winston's first start, and then lost this past weekend to the Chargers. And they have a bye week now. And then following that bye, will um, play New Orleans. So that's our Browns update. And then, Nick, anything to add with that?
Yeah, I heard last night on, Cleveland News, uh, they're facing the Saints with uh, another team with 7 losses, but theirs are consecutive.
Yes. So we'll see. I'm not sure who they play this week or
They
if
do
they
play the Saints.
no, this week. The Saints. The Browns have a bye,
Oh,
right?
yes.
But so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then I guess one other update is, more on the major update side is that the Browns did trade Zadarius Smith to the Detroit Lions. So he's a good player, I think, and he'll be missed, but the Browns really need to get some draft picks back, and I think that's part of it. So we'll see what they can do for the remainder of the season, and obviously their playoff hopes are very slim, but uh, we'll bring updates throughout the year. Again, it won't be as frequent, but just wanted to provide that brief update. And then the Guardians, unfortunately, as most, if not everyone knows at this point, had a real thrilling series against the Detroit Tigers in the ALDS. Was able to pull that one out, and then it had a really exciting series against the New York Yankees. But unfortunately, we're only able to win one game, and they lost in five. Um, Real fun, exciting baseball. It seems like pitching injuries and that sort of thing finally showed up in a big way in the playoffs. And then also just the Yankees are a really good team and have some serious power as well as good pitching. So, Nick, anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to point out some of the off the field awards that were uh, awarded to the club. Uh, Many of you may have heard that first year manager Stephen Vogt was named AL Manager of the Year. Stephen Kwan and Andres Jimenez both have received gold gloves for the third consecutive season. Uh, and so that's really exciting news. And I want to get into the Guardians just a few days ago, re-signing catcher Austin Hedges for the same amount, $4 million for 1 season. Not only does he uh, play probably on average 20 games per year, I know he may not be as dependable as a hitter, but he is quite the locker room guy, gives the team a spark, and we saw that this whole season. And hopefully, he can provide the same leadership going into 2025.
Yeah, he probably plays more than that, but I'm not sure exactly. But and I guess one other fairly important news update is David Fry got elbow surgery. He's expected to be out. I heard something like 6 to 8 months. So hopefully, if everything goes well, maybe he can come back as early as June, July. We shall see. But if his elbow is back to, working well again, maybe he can catch. He did that earlier in the season, and we kind of missed him in that position. In many ways, it just could have perhaps provided an additional bat in the lineup. But Nick, anything else with that?
Yeah, I know for the Guardians, most of us think of wanting to get power and starting and bullpen arms and maybe even an outfielder. But in his absence, I know he wasn't required to catch as often as Bo Naylor or Austin Hedges. Maybe even a uh, minor league prospect if they would bring a name up, maybe not right away, but throughout those months that he misses. What do you think of that likeliness?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I guess it's totally possible. But Bo Naylor can do a good job. He, from my understanding, is a pretty solid defensive catcher, and hopefully he can work on his bat a little bit too. He's seen some glimpses of power, which is nice, but I like this front office. They should be able to weather uh that I wouldn't even call it a storm. Just they should be able to get through it. So with that, let's move on to, unfortunately their season's over and the World Series is done and over. Let's move on to the red hot Cavs and their start to the season. Nick, what do you have for that?
So, um, I didn't know too much about the Cavs going into the season when thoughts of what the record could be like. Uh, I think myself, my understanding, like so many fans in Cleveland, was we brought all the big names back. Mobley was extended, uh, even bigger name. Donovan Mitchell was extended. A lot of rumors were the Cavs would not be able to bring him back, and that he would want to go elsewhere, like the New York Knicks or even I don't know LA. But thankfully, the Cavs were able to bring all their core stars back: Mobley, Mitchell, Allen, and uh, I don't believe Garland was extended, but we know he's returning from a serious jaw injury. And, starting 9-0 to begin the year, that's a new franchise record. Something they had set, topping the old 8-0 start in the 70s. So think about that. That's not even a record they had in the LeBron era.
Right. It's amazing what they've been doing, and they haven't just been. I mean, a few games were close, maybe, but they've kind of been blowing teams out. Their point differential is one of the best in the NBA. Their offense, in terms of points scored per game, is one of the best, if not the best, I think. Golden State might actually have that. And we'll get into them in a second. And actually, Golden State is playing really good defense too, in terms of points allowed. But the Cavs are scoring well and playing pretty good defense at the same time. So I like what they're doing. It just let's keep it going and see if they can make it 10-0 tonight against a fan favorite, the Golden State Warriors. Nick, what do you see as they go into that game tonight?
Well, I don't exactly know his former role, but I do know the new head coach, Kenny Atkinson, uh, was on the Golden State Warriors. And at the beginning of the season, like I mentioned, making all the moves, bringing the star players back, the front office mainly believed uh, it was the head coach that needed to be changed. And right now, apparently that appears to be true. And, we know Steph Curry, the big name on the Warriors, the 3-point threat, what he brings. I'm interested to see how their offense plays now that Klay Thompson is on the Mavericks. Uh, I know that's not the matchup tonight, but I'm interested to see that Clay and Irving later in the year, whenever that may be. But I don't feel as nervous facing the Warriors, especially this season, and that it's at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
Yeah, they're still, of course, a really good team, but without their big three, I guess, that we've known so well over the years, with Clay being gone, it is just not the same. Again, doesn't mean they can't come to Cleveland and win. Um, again, good team, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm confident that they can start 10-0, and then from there, the only thing is, do you worry, Nick, that they're putting in too much effort? And that kind of sounds maybe dumb to say, but it is an 82 game season. And you see teams that sometimes have really good regular season records don't always, obviously, it's not a direct correlation who wins the championship, of course, but, um, the playoffs are a different brand of basketball. How do you feel about them? Perhaps caring, I don't want to say caring too much about wins, but you get what I'm saying of
Yeah.
trying to balance wins as well as rest and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you're saying. The Cavs certainly wouldn't be taking the approach, and this may change for other teams, but what I've noticed was, for example, when we faced the Milwaukee Bucks, uh, it was a back-to-back matchup. We obviously beat them both times, being 9-0. But in game two, when the Bucks came to Cleveland, uh, Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play at all. He was resting, and I know NBA teams can be fined for that. What I'm saying is, I know the Cavaliers would not take that approach, but um, as we know, when the Cavs uh, beat the Magic last playoff series, and then maybe I'd say struggle against the Celtics. Jared Allen was out the whole time, not the whole time, but he got injured, and I don't know. Were they missing Mobley back then? I don't recall.
No, not Mobley. But Donovan was hurt, and um, Garland wasn't. It just seemed like coming off his injury,
It was
he
the same.
wasn't quite the same. I mean, eating through a straw or whatever for
Yeah, losing
however
weight.
long, it could
Um,
not be easy.
I I do want to bring up how flashy Mobley, especially, has been at the start of the season. Um, you know, for a couple years now, fans have been saying they want Mobley to attack the basket more, uh, develop a 3-point shot. And uh, I looked at it, and uh, Mobley's been averaging 17.3 points per game. Mitchell, 23.8 points per game. Garland, 19.8 points per game. And, that's our, it used to be LeBron, Irving, and Love, but the new Cavs big three is Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley. It's a very exciting, young, talented group. And as I mentioned, being signed uh, for a long, long period now, I believe estimated 3 years between the three. It's going to be an exciting few years watching them play.
Yeah, I don't know the exact, but I know Mitchell was a 3-year extension, right? But I'm gonna have to look at the specifics. But anyway, really loving this hot start, loving kind of the way they're playing and seeing how Mobley seems to be taking steps. Nick, anything else to add for this team?
Yeah, I do, you know, in the NBA, no game is easy to win. But as you mentioned, it seemed like they were blowing teams away. Probably the two toughest games I've seen the Cavs battle and come out on top was on the road. They won at Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks, and another road game just on Wednesday. They faced the New Orleans Pelicans, and they were trailing by 12, and they scored after being tied at 59 at the half. The Cavaliers uh, scored 40 points in the third, which was just incredible. And I remember watching that game. Jared Allen had 3 consecutive blocks, and you know, it may sound like it's been easy for the Cavs, but it's not. They've really shown having the ability to battle back, being down double digits, you know. So it's you get nervous, but it's exciting.
Yep. So, again, hard to argue with the 9-0 start, but we'll be sure to bring you updates throughout the year. Thank you everyone for listening. You have been listening to the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast.